Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this month's webinar. We'll be talking about the LADWP Demand Response Program today. It's very timely as we start heading into summer. I think we're expecting more record heat days, and I want to keep those demand charges under control and save money and support local energy reliability. I think that's a really important point, that second one about energy reliability. I was reading the other day about some of the holdover effects from the blowout at Aliso Canyon. There's not as much natural gas that can be stored there, and so utilities aren't able to fire up the peaker plants at full capacity the way that they normally would before that issue became an issue. So, more than ever, that ability to reduce loads, reduce strain on the grid on those hot days is key, just to keeping the lights on, and to save money. So a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. As usual, the webinar will be recorded, and we'll circulate that to everyone on our email list, along with a copy of the slides and key takeaways and links to some updated program fact sheets and application materials. Those were also posted in WebEx, but if you didn't see those, no problem. They'll be included with the recording and the rest of the materials. Everyone is muted just to keep things orderly, but there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. Hassan's going to move pretty quickly through the content, yes, so there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. We'll be sure to cover those at the end. My name's Dave Hodgins. I run the LA Better Buildings Challenge. We're funded by LADWP, as most of you probably know, to make sure people are aware of these programs in time to make sure to take advantage of them and connect some dots. Hassan Motalebi, our speaker today, runs the Demand Response Program at LADWP, which is now in its 4th year, I believe, Hassan. And he's excellent. And so he's going to talk today about what demand response means, the types of buildings that can participate and really benefit by this, the services and support that his team can provide, which is phenomenal. They're very responsive, very easy to work with in my direct experience. It's fantastic. And some of their targets and the incentives that are available. So with that, I'll turn it over to Hassan.
Thank you, David, and hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the WebEx webinar. I do appreciate, David, your attempts, your efforts in the past and presently to discuss the DR program with our, customers, DWP customers, mainly in downtown area and other areas as well. Every time we have one of these events, we kind of get lucky and get few new partners added to our demand response program, which we appreciate. And this is indeed a partnership. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to briefly talk about the facilities that are suitable for DR. Of course, these are not limited to this. There are other facilities. If you have, please do talk to us. We'll come to your facility. We'll visit it. We'll look at your equipment, and we give you some assessment of what your DR capabilities might be. Then we offer what we call a validation test. And through that validation test, you actually curtail your load. We look at your meter data, and we let you know how much load in terms of kWs you've been able to curtail. Very briefly, if you're a manufacturing plant, an office building, or a retail building, entertainment studios, educational studios, museums, cold storages, or hotels, and I'm missing a few, I'm sure, but these are the main, building types in our service territory. You're a good fit for DR participation. No matter how efficient your equipment are, your lighting, I assure you there is some DR capability there. And that's what we see over and over with our customers when they initially believe that they're kind of mean and lean in terms of energy usage, energy management. Then after kind of, doing this for a season or two, we discover plenty of DR capabilities hidden in there, which of course means, money, savings both for you and for us. So on that note, actually, let me introduce my team here. I have Zar Tin and also Albert Luna. Many of you might know them. Anytime you talk to us about DR, Zar and Albert are the ones that actually get to work and look at your meter data and do the analysis needed to answer your questions. If you could go to the next slide, David, please. Yes, let me start by a very simple definition we've developed for DR. What is DR? Actually, back in 2015 when we started this, customers would often ask us what DR is in simple terms. And as the definition reads here, it changes in the electric load, such as reductions, increases, or shifts by end-use customers from their normal consumption patterns in response to specific market or system conditions. And what we target with DR is the peak load. Peak load is the load usually at this point is defined between 1 to 5 p.m. That's a sliding window that could change in the future. It's kind of getting closer to 6 p.m. now, and at some point it might hit 8 p.m. or so. As we see from that graph down the diagram, between 1 to 5 p.m., when you curtail those loads we talked about, in terms of kW, that's what your load shape would look like, and that's the kind of the expensive part of the energy you use on daily basis. By taking that out, you save money on your bill. At the same time, you help us with our, resource issues, with system reliability, and, other benefits that we will talk about. So on the next slide, we look at the potential reasons for DR events. We talked about in response to a signal from the utility. The reasons that we could call for a DR event could be high system peaks, certain days in the summer, and last year we had few of those, 4 or 5 days in a row, we have a heat wave, or other needs. We might be short of resources, few things might be out for maintenance, there might be some continuity issues, all those could lead to a decision to call for DR to reduce the peak load. Could be resource shortages. We talked about that. I just mentioned that. Equipment fails sometimes, and it's beyond our control. We try to fix them as fast as we can. The DR is one tool that would help us relieve the load, even the customers voluntarily reduce their load. System contingencies. For those that are in the planning business, know what Plan A, B, and C means. A transformer bank, for example, at a station could fail due to heat or age, and there it is. The load that that feeds is no longer available. So by curtailing the load, we basically taken steps to relieve that the need for resources there. System reliability. We put a picture of transmission line there. We've heard about these transmission lines bringing power in, mostly in the form of AC and DC. They go through public lands, they go through forests. Unfortunately, sometimes we have fires in the forest. Things happen beyond our control. Floods, we don't get those much here. Landslide, mudslide, that we can, lose the line, and with that line goes the power we bring in from out of the state to feed the load. In cases like that, DR is a good tool to curtail the load so there is no need to get the resources for it. And also temperature. That's one of the most important factors in determining when we call for DR. Usually in summer season, when temperature is high, in most cases, load is very high. And we have peaks up to 6,700 megawatts or so. And in most cases, that's the driver. Not in all cases, in most cases, when temperature is high, our load forecast is high, and that's why programs like DR would come in very handy in terms of ensuring a reliable power grid for our customers. On the next slide, the benefits of DR, obviously, it has benefits to us, it has benefits to you. On top of the list is the environmental impact. It reduces greenhouse gas emission and carbon footprint. The load we don't have is the load we don't need to generate for. Less generation, less emission. It's mostly gas, or if it's coal, which we're kind of, phasing that out by 2026. So environmental benefits are very important with programs, energy efficiency type programs, DR type programs. It helps us integrate the renewables, wind and solar. They're not available 24 hours a day, so we need to be able to regulate the load with that. DR will give us that tool. Sometimes we need to add load. DR is also a tool to do that too. We call it reverse DR, but so far in most cases we've asked the customers to reduce their load. Customer bill, when you reduce your peak load, that's the expensive energy you pay for between 1 to 5, 1 to 6. So basically that drops out of your bill. And in addition to that, you earn incentives. So the financial benefits are twofold: the money you don't pay for the bill and the incentives you earn for curtailing the load. And increasing energy reliability, basically when you run a system at this maximum capacity, that's kind of the potential for failures and mishaps goes up. You overload the lines, things could happen. Transformers, other equipment, and within the facility, by the way, your lighting, your AC system, your compressors, your fans, when they're working around the clock, you're shaving off their lifetime, actually. So with DR, when the load is high, if you can provide relief to them, you also save money on maintenance. So you'll experience less incidents of failures on your part of the facility as well, not just utility side, on customer side as well. Now, what is demand response program parameters? Very briefly, the requirements are this: you need to have the ability to curtail load between June 15th to October 15th. That's our DR season. It's a 4-month season in a month, June 15th to October 15th. The DR time period is 1 to 5 p.m. We won't ask you to curtail your load between 12 to 5. It's usually 1 to 5 or less. 4 hours is maximum. It could be any period less than 4 hours. In the past, we've had events that we only ask the customers to curtail for 2 hours, between 3 to 5. There are two types of participation programs, if you want to call it that way, if you put it that way. One is a 24-hour advance notice. The other one is a 2-hour advance notice. By that, we mean that we notify you at least 24 hours in advance that there is going to be a DR event. That's usually day ahead. Or if you choose to sign up for a 2-hour advance notice, we give you at least 2 hours notice. We're not saying that we're going to wait until it is 2 hours before the event to notify you. We're going to notify you as soon as we know there's going to be an event, but we'll guarantee you at least 2-hour advance notification. And if we cannot give you that notice, then your participation is totally, completely voluntary. You won't get penalized in any ways for not participating in that program. Now, you're required to curtail at least 100 kW. We like to see that capability for a commercial building. And you need to do at least 50% of that to be able to get any incentives. So you sign up for 100 kW. In most cases, excuse me, you're capable of doing much more. Then you need to do at least 50 kW to get the incentives, which should do 50% of that. If you do 100%, you get 100% of the incentives. Now, the limits of the DR events, I mentioned are 4 hours. There'll be 1 event per day. We won't call you twice in a day for an event. There'll be a maximum of 12 events in one season. In entire summer season, in those 4 months we talked about, June 15 to October 15, we call you no more than 12 times. And so far, we haven't had to call even 12 times. Later, we're going to talk about how many events we've had since 2015. Maximum of 2 opt-outs per season are allowed. Opt-out means we call you within that notification window and you tell us, for example, today is not a good day. Sometimes the college campuses that are a DR event will let us know on the first day of the school, in fall, I believe. What day is that? Do you recall anyone? August. Someday in August, they say, well, today school just started. We cannot do any DR event today, so they opt out. That's not a big deal. We won't hold it against them. But we don't want you to we don't like to see you do more than 2 opt-outs. If that happens, then we'll sit down and talk about it to see what the issue is. And if there is any way we could assist you or help you to figure out the problem so you don't have to opt out more than 2 times in a season. The program incentives, this is an incentive-based program. We mentioned that in the beginning. You save energy and you earn incentives as well. There are 2 types of incentives. One is capacity incentives. Capacity incentives is like a premium we pay you for just being on the program. Whether we call for an event or we don't, you're going to earn that incentives for 4 months. The other incentive is energy or event incentives. That's straight kilowatt-hour incentives we pay you. For every kilowatt-hours you curtail, you earn 25 cents. There is no limit on that. The more you do, the more you earn. On the capacity incentives, you earn almost per kW we pay you. If you say, well, we can do 100 kW, then based on per kW, you get certain amount of incentives. If you do 100% of that, you get 100% of that at the end of the season. If you do 50%, you get 50%, and in between is proportional. But then again, we don't like to see you drop below 50%. If that happens, we'll work with you to see if we can make up for it on the next event. Now, the incentive amounts, there are two types of incentives, as we mentioned, or programs, 24-hour, 2-hour advance notice. We talked about it earlier. We offer $5 per kW per month. Then keep in mind there are 4 months in there. If you are a 24-hour notice participation, okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. If you are a 24-hour notification customer or participant, we offer $5 per kW per month. And if you sign up for a 2-hour notice participation, incentives are $8 per kW. And if you notice, there is a sharp increase between 24 and 2-hour because the 2-hour notification DR is valued much more than 24 hours, though we appreciate both types of participants here. That gives us a shorter window to call for a DR event. We may not know today that we need to have an event tomorrow, but if we know tomorrow morning, for example, then that would fall below 24 hours. So within a shorter window, we're asking you to prep to do a DR event. So we understand you need to do more to conduct a DR event on shorter notice. We're offering you almost twice as much incentives, $5 for 24 and $8 for 2-hour notice incentives. And we talked about energy incentives, which is $25 per kilowatt hour. There is no limit there. The more you do, the more you earn. We've included a table here at the bottom just to put this in perspective, that how much incentives we can earn. Let's say you're a minimum kW participant, 100 kW. Give me a moment, please. Thank you. Sorry. Your incentives could range between $2,600 to $3,800 in season. And if you're a mid-range participant, like 500 kW, most office buildings would fall in this range. You would earn anywhere between $13,000 to $19,000 in incentives. That's combined capacity plus event incentive or energy incentives. And the range is due to whether you are a 24-hour advance notice participant or a 2-hour advance notice participant. That's the notification window you sign up for. Obviously, 19,000 is when you are a 2-hour, advance notification. And if you're on the higher limits of, curtailment, 1 meg and up, I think we have one customer does 1.8 meg. It's a manufacturing plant. For 1 meg, you earn between $26,000 to $38,000 per season. And when we think about this, actually, this is a 4-month season. Those incentives are for a maximum of 12 events. 12 events, 4 hours each. And for the purpose of this table, we've assumed only 6 DR events in a season. If we do more, you would earn more incentives not on the capacity side, that's fixed. You earn more incentives on the energy side because those 25 cents per kilowatt hours will add up. And if you go to the next slide, we have a table here just to let you know when those seasons are. They're color-coded. You see June 15, it starts with pink. And then each month, you go through those, and October is the purple month, and it ends October 15, that's the end of the season. Then at the end of the season, we calculate your performances. Then we come up with this, average final performance for your DR. Then based on those KWs and KW hours, we determine what your performance was, whether you were at 100% of your committed value, 70%, 50%, whatever it was, then we write a check to you, and you get the checks by, I believe, first week or second week of January. Program ends in October, then it takes us a while to do the calculations, notify you, answer your questions if there is any, discrepancies between your numbers and our numbers in terms of performances. Then we give the check to your, I believe, account rep, right? Am I right, team? Yes. Your account representative will bring the check to you and hand it to you, basically, in person. Now, when the reason we average the performances over the season, not per month, is to actually give you a chance to make up for an underperformance event. Say if on event 1 you're new to the program, instead of doing 100% of your commitment, you do 50%. Now you have a chance to make up for that with the second event. If in the second event you perform 150% in terms of load curtailment, then you've made up for that 50% shortage, and at the end of the season you get the full 100% incentives. And that's the main reason we don't want to do it by the month. If you go monthly, then if you miss the chance for that month to perform at 100%, then you've missed out on the incentives for that month. And most of our clients or partners in the program, when they underperform in one event, they've been able to come back and overperform in the following events to make up for that underperformance. On slide number 9, we're showing some measures for different types of buildings, and this information has come to us from our DR participants to date. The ones that have joined the program so far have shared this information with us. Some of this have been also the suggestions we've given them when we have visited the facility. We've kind of pointed out the opportunities for the different types of buildings, like an office building. It's very suitable for DR. You can almost take any measures in terms of load curtailment. I mean, elevators are there, escalators, AC units are there, lighting is there, parking garage fans are there, any other exhaust fans you have would fall into that category, plug-in loads, motors, you name it. They're all in there for an office building. There is a lot of potential in an office building to do DR. Then you move to, educational facilities. There are some limitations there with colleges, etc. Manufacturing is product-based. You see that some of the measures drop. There are some additional measures there, entertainment, museums, etc. But most of them have to do with electrical, obviously, loads, and AC, any motor type loads, and lighting will top the list of, a DR value. Most of the value usually comes from AC, and if AC load is not there to curtail, then lighting, plug-in load, motors, any inductive type of a motor, will provide quite a bit of DR value when you drop the load on it. Some history on what we've done so far up to date. We started the DR program in 2015. That was the pilot phase of the program. You noticed that the participation was low. We were just introducing the program to public. It was on the average 5 megawatts in 2015. We had a total of 5 events in 2015, and I talked about these 12 events we asked you to participate. That's only if we have to, we'll ask you to do that. Usually it is much less than 12 events that we need, load relief in a summer season. We paid out about $47,000 in incentives. That first year, we spend a lot of time with our customers to introduce the program, to analyze the facilities, to do DR reports, etc. It was a part of the incentives to join the program during the pilot phase. In 2016, we increased our portfolio. By then, more people knew about the program. We had about 4 events only in 2016. Our average portfolio was about 30 megawatts. We had one event that customers performed 56 megawatts. That was one super hot day. It was one of those, flex alert days, and everybody participated. But on average, it was 30 megawatts, and we paid about $320,000 in incentives to the participating customers. And in 2017, our performance, the DR performance was about 25 megawatts. We still had the same number of participants. We paid out more incentives, $357,000, and the performance dropped a little bit, mainly because we had to call for DR in 4 consecutive days. If you're one of those customers that participated in 2017, you do remember those days. We had a heat wave, and we were very pleased with the performance of the customers. We hadn't heard of anywhere else that they had called for a DR event 4 days in a row. I think we called it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and performance was very solid on every single day. So the customers did very well with the DR, participation. Basically, that's all I have to introduce or talk about DR. I'm sure you have questions. The team is here to answer any questions you might have. And on the last slide, we've put some contact information. If you're interested in the program and the information, you can talk to David if you wish, or you could directly contact us. We'll provide information. And there is there is an email address there, demand.response@ladwp.com. We monitor that, mailbox on daily basis, several times a day. We usually get back to you within a day or two. No, actually, within 24 hours, we'll get back to you. My email address is there. If you wish to contact me, my phone number is there. And the team's phone number is here, too. The DR office phone number is down below, 367-3319. So there are 2 or 3 different ways you can contact us, and we assure you we'll get back to you within 24 hours. And we have a website also. I don't have the address here, but I'm going to give it to you now. There is a DR website when you go to LADWP's website. It is www.ladwp.com/DR program. Let me say it again, www.ladwp.com/ that's the /DR program. And all the information we have on DR, the latest ones, they're posted on that website as well. So that concludes my presentation. The team and I will be glad to answer any questions you might have. And thank you again, David, for organizing this.
Thank you, Hassan. This is a great program and, again, very timely. And so we do have some questions coming in. It's a good question, kind of apropos of the conversation we were having earlier. So my building is new and very efficient, and I'm not sure that I can shed 100 kW. Maybe can you share any examples of newer buildings, Hassan, or already very efficient buildings that have benefited by participating in the program?
Yes, actually, one good example I have is that a building that just joined the program is Wilshire Grand, that also houses Intercontinental Hotel. It's the new tallest building in California. It used to be U.S. Bank building, I believe. Now it's Wilshire Grand. They're also a new building, very efficient in terms of equipment. They have the latest equipment there. We met with them, and the sentiment was the same, that they have in terms of energy usage, they were pretty mean and lean, and they did not think they had so much DR capability. They were even concerned if they have 100 kW. We met with the facility manager there. We walked through the facility. We looked at the equipment. We set up what we call a DR validation test. We came up with a list of measures they could take on a particular day. We asked them to go ahead and curtail the load. And we looked at the meter data the next day. We did the calculation, baselining, and all that. We found out that they could do 400 kW. And this was a super efficient building in terms of energy consumption. And also, LA Life is another facility here down there by Olympic. When they joined the program in 2016, I believe, they thought the same. We met with them. They were all LEDs. They had just converted to LEDs. All the billboards were LEDs. They had a very good energy management program. And when we did the validation with them, I believe they came in at about 750 kW. At the time, very modern building, still a modern building, with a very good energy management program in place, EVs and all that are there. And today they're doing, even back then, 750 kW of DR participation anytime there has been an event. They've done so, but actually they're telling us every day in summer they take some DR measures, not the days that, we're calling for, since the savings are good, and they've noticed that they can curtail more load, and they're getting a smoother load curve, and they're doing it almost every day. So those are two examples, and there are more, actually. Those were the bigger, buildings that I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Another question, kind of the flip side of that. What about older buildings that may not have, a full building automation system or that are running off of pneumatic controls? Can those type of buildings also participate?
Oh, definitely, definitely. What we do in those situations, we identify the big loads within the building that are mainly ACs and major, if they have fans, kind of a motors, elevators, and we kind of recommend that they operate those manually, since the controls are kind of local. Since the controls are local there, they can at a certain time walk up to those controls and turn up an equipment mainly. To give you an example, cold storages are a good example of that. Most of them have old controls, pneumatics, and I don't want to use the word outdated. They're very effective for the type of the business, and most of them are doing that. If they don't have a building energy management system, the latest one, they identify the kind of cooling load they want to curtail, compressors, refrigeration, and they can either manually walk up to that load and between the hours of 1 and 5 shut it down or reduce the cooling, load, or they have some sort of a remote control capability to control that. You don't need to have a very elaborate energy management system. Then again, it depends on your load as well. As I mentioned, cold storages are very efficient for that purpose. And if you have older buildings in LA, my recommendation is to operate or adjust the cooling load, AC load, manually. You'll have plenty of time to do it since there is 1 or 2 major loads that you need to control.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. Another question about, and I think this could also relate to the cold storage example, is occupant comfort, or in the case of cold storage, risk to the safety of the food or whatever is being stored there. Have you heard any issues from customers that have participated in terms of tenants being upset, or do people generally not notice?
Generally not, but there has been incidents that tenants have complained. We've told at the end of each year we do a survey with customers. We do ask similar questions, that how the employees like the program, if you had any employee complaints, if you had any client complaints, if you had any customer complaints. Yes, there has been occasional complaints. They have mostly been about AC, usually in college campuses, students and faculty sometimes complain about the AC. And in situations like that, we're recommending a milder, measure. Like with AC, if, everything is good, no complaints, we recommend increasing the temperature by 3 to 4 degrees, temperature settings when there's a DR event. In cases that have been complaints, we ask to drop that to 2 degrees maybe. Make that, transition smoother for the occupants not to feel it as much. That's one way of doing that. If there is a particular area that there is a specific complaint about a specific measure, they can either suspend that measure if the complaint happens. It usually happens 2 or 3 hours into the event. It doesn't happen in the beginning, because in most buildings they do pre-cooling of the building envelope. So building is pretty cold when they start, shutting down the AC or dialing it up. So it takes 2 to 3 hours to get to the point that they would hear a complaint. And if it happens, you can either, make it a milder approach, milder measure, instead of 4 degrees, temperature increase, drop it down to 2, or you can suspend it. You've done 2 or 3 hours of DR, you have, implemented that measure, then you just last hour, you can suspend that particular measure and just ride through the rest of the event. You lose a little bit of DR capacity, But in the scheme of, several events in, throughout the season, you'll find some place to make up for it. So we do want you to be responsive to your clients, human effect, as we call it. But there are measures you can take to kind of, to alleviate that.
Right. So it sounds like, now you're in the fourth year of the program. It sounds like there's some kind of year-over-year learning of kind of continual dialing in of how much we can shed on certain days given the use and occupancy of the building.
Exactly. Actually, it's been a good learning experience for all of us. For us as the utility partner and for the clients as the, customer partners. Each year, we survey them and they survey their clients and customers, and we learn new stuff about it. And we take steps, actually. We intended this to be a learning experience for all of us, and we wanted to get the feedback from the clients, from the customers, so we can tweak the program to make it work for all. And yes, each year the lessons learned, we document those. And one thing actually has been persistent and consistent throughout the last 3 years, now we're entering the fourth year, is that most of our clients, without any exception, have been able to increase their DR capacity. So the more they do DR, the better they get at it in terms of capacity of DR. The better ways they find to curtail their load without really impacting the comfort of the clients, the customers.
That's great to hear. Related to that, you talked about the capacity incentives and then the actual performance incentives, but of course, demand charges are a big component of the bill. Could you just speak about that briefly, about how demand charges affect rates and how that carries through to the actual bills for the year?
Oh, yes. Basically, if your load peaks beyond a certain, value, you get hit with demand charges. They're expensive. The DR on those days that the load is high, temperature is high, when you curtail your load, you basically take your peak load out. That doesn't even become an issue on those particular days. Not only you flatten your peak, in some cases we see at meter level. Then we look at the data. We look at each meter in a facility. We actually see a chunk taken out of the, peak load. On that first slide we showed, and that's from a real, actually meter, that data we showed, all that energy, high-cost energy, actually disappears from the bill. So there is savings right there. And on top of that, you're getting incentives for that. So the savings are twofold. And when you add the benefits of DR to you, we're talking about the customer only at this point, then you'll have lesser, outages in your facility if you don't overload your own transformers or your own equipment, your own wires, your own switches. So all that savings add up over the period of, at least 1 year. Then the only concern, I think, is when sometimes we ask that, when the DR event is over, when we're coming out of the event, what if we peak? Are we going to get hit with, peak demand charges? That could basically, the chances of that happening is very, very slim, because DR event is over at about 5 o'clock. When you come out of DR event, your load doesn't come back up because people are now leaving the offices to go home. So you don't need to have as much of an AC or other loads, even lighting, because they turn off the lightings after 5 or 6 p.m. And most customers actually, when they come out of the event, they do it very slowly. Over a period of half an hour to 1 hour, they bring the load back on one by one. And then they do that, actually, they go into 6-7 hours or so, 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. before they completely come out of the DR mode, because they really don't need the load at that time. Load, after 5 p.m., most offices, people go home.
Right, makes sense. Okay, I think we'll wrap up. This is next question. I think it's a good one to wrap up on, which is, it sounds like this is a really collaborative process between your team and the customer's team. How does a customer, we've got your contact information here, but is it a pretty simple application process? They reach out to you, how do they get into the program? And today is May 23rd. Season starts June 15th. So we're hoping that we can that more people can get involved. So what does that process look like?
Okay, actually, it's fairly simple. It's designed to make it very customer friendly. If they've seen this webinar, the terms and conditions are there with the application. They reach out to us, or they can reach out directly to us and say, we want to join the program, we want information. Or they can reach out to their accounts rep and say, we want to join the program. Either way, we're contacted, we call the customer, we set up a meeting with the customer immediately, we go to the site, we would like to meet with the facility manager or any other building manager that is at the, has the capacity of signing an application for the DR. We walk to the facility, we have a very brief meeting, we discuss the terms and conditions, we go over the application, we offer them to sign the application. Once they sign, after we've seen the facility, they're practically in the program. That's as simple as that. Then we offer to do, a validation test if you have time before the beginning of the season. We say, okay, these are the measures you can curtail. Let's do it on this particular day. We like to know, look at your meter data, see, what numbers you should put on your application, because the incentive they earn is based on that number they put on the application. If we can do it, we'll do it. If not, we do it with the first event of the season. When there is an event, we determine the DR capability. And if it's more than what they put on the application, we let them change it, actually. If they say, well, let's just 100 kW to join the program, and when there is an event and they come in at 400 kW, which means they can earn 4 times as much incentive, we allow them to modify that application, put down 4 kW, then from 400. Then from that point on, we calculate their incentives based on 400 kW. And let me mention that this is a no penalty program. If you don't perform, you don't get penalized at all. This doesn't touch your rates at all. Customer can join. This is on the side, actually. Rates are rates. We don't get into that. And there is no penalty. The only actually money you don't get is the money you don't, earn is the money that you don't perform. If you opt out, obviously, you don't do any DR, then you don't earn any incentives. That's about it. We don't penalize you on top of that. There are some programs in the country, in other places, other utilities, that once you make a commitment, you need to perform or utility penalizes you. We don't do that. This is just incentive-based. And we basically like to set up the customer for success, not for failure. So it's just simple as that. Within a day, actually, we can get you on a program. If you want to join the program today, and if you're willing to sign the application with a minimum of 100 kW, then you're in. Then we make an appointment with your facility manager to meet with them to determine the actual DR capacity. And we can modify that on your application later.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Hassan. This was really great, and I'll be circulating again a copy of the slides as well as the recording. I think there's a lot of great information here, but my key takeaway that I hope everybody heard was that this is a really flexible, voluntary program. It's easy to get involved. Most buildings, if not all buildings, can find ways to really reduce that peak load, and there's no construction required. This is operational, and you'll find ways and continue to get better year over year of shedding load, and that's going to have your bill impact year-round and reduce maintenance outages and help us manage the grid overall. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time today, and we'll be looking forward to seeing everybody again next month.
Thank you again, and there's plenty of time to sign up for this year. If you're interested, just contact us, on our website or email address, phone numbers. We're accessible or reachable via any of those, channels, and we'll get back to you very quickly. And there is still plenty of time between now and June 15 to meet with you and sign you up for the program. Thank you.